foot ulcer that can lead to severe health consequences, including amputation. At the sole authority, at little or no cost, you can receive your very own therapeutic shoes and custom inserts. Medicare recipients are entitled to 1 pair of quality diabetic shoes and 3 custom inserts. Call the Sole Authority today, 954-597-7060.
For anyone contributing to a retirement plan, there's something you should know. Something Wall Street isn't telling you. If you're driving, you might want to pull over. Okay, ready for it? The average U.S. household pays $150,000 in 401k fees over a lifetime. $150,000. That's 3 working years for the average American household. What's worse, most of these retirement accounts are invested in expensive funds with lackluster results. Is lackluster too harsh? Not when 86% of mutual funds fail to do better than the market index. If you think Wall Street invests in these funds, think again. At Online Trading Academy, you'll discover how investors like you are learning to think and act like the pros. Over 250,000 people have learned about our patented strategy, and now you can too, by attending a free half-day class in your area. Don't delay. Seats are limited.
Call 561-674-9800. 561-674-9800. 561-674-9800.
This is Talk 1470.
Talk 1470.
WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teele. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teele, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
And welcome, everyone, to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm so glad you could join us today, whether you're listening on the local radio station or whether you are watching us live on your computer. I'm glad that you're here. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida. Caregiver Solutions Info was created for you, the caregiver, so that you could get information to help solve some of your caregiving challenges. As everyone knows, caregiving is not an easy job. Matter of fact, it's a very difficult job. And so what we do is we bring experts to you via the show. We ask the questions, and you get the solutions. And so this is a great way. It's another resource in addition to reading all the experts' books, reading the Alzheimer's books, the dementia, the caregiving books. It's another resource than going to support groups, which I know a lot of people like, but a lot of people don't like. It's another resource other than going to seminars because there's time frames. So I'm glad that you're here, whether you're watching us live. You can also pick us up on the caregiversolutions.info website and check out some of our previous shows. Whatever that you need, I'm sure, hopefully you'll find a topic that's relevant to your situation. And so before we get started, I just want to let you know, if you do have a question or a comment about something you've seen or heard on the show, and you'd like to send me a quick email, and maybe there's something you'd like for us to address, just send it to me, marcia.teele@arden-courts.com. And again, that's Marcia, Marcia .Teele, Teele, @arden-courts.com. And then we'll be able to receive your email and answer that question the following week. which brings me to answering this question. Now, last week we had with us a very special guest that talked about guardianship fraud. She was the comptroller for Palm Beach County, and we talked about guardianship and guardian fraud, whether it was guardianship via a professional guardian or guardianship via a family member. So I got an email from Mike. Mike is in Margate, and Mike asked us, is guardianship always needed for an Alzheimer's patient? Well, Mike, the short answer is no. Most of the time, a durable power of attorney will suffice. When a durable power of attorney is not in effect and it's too late to get one, in other words, the person with dementia cannot assign their power to someone else because they're too compromised to do that and they don't understand what decisions they're making. So if that's the case, then sometimes there's no alternative but to go to guardianship. And guardianship is, again, through the courts. It's more expensive. It is very arduous going through the court. There's a lot involved. It's time-consuming. So the answer that you really want to have is, when should I get durable power of attorney? Because having a durable power of attorney in place will most times prevent you from having to go the guardianship route. Also, if there are options for people to become powers of attorney, and you can have dual powers of attorney, but if there's options with that, and let's say the people that could be the power of attorney don't have the same interest. In other words, they're not on the same page, or they don't have the best interest for the person that has dementia, and there's a conflict there and they can't agree. That's when perhaps then a guardian would be nice to be put in place, because a guardian will be the intermediary between the other parties and do, in what their opinion is, the right thing. So the lesson here is, get the durable power of attorneys as soon as possible. Don't delay, and then you won't have to go down that road. So thank you, Mike, for asking that email. So we're going to be talking today about something that's important for all caregivers to know, and even some professionals, and that is how to say no. So the topic is the power of no, and I don't mean the K-N-O-W no, I mean the N-O no. We know the power of no, the K-N-O-W kind, is meaning knowledge. We all know that knowledge is power, but apparently there's a lot of power associated with the other no, the N-O no. And we're going to find out what that means and talk to an expert who's going to explain it all to us. And so stay right with us, and as soon as we're back from this commercial break, we'll share.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help, because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare-covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And welcome back. I just want to add another piece of advice before we get into our guest today, that if you have any other questions, or if you have a question about guardianship, about power of attorneys, about when it's appropriate, please consult an elder law attorney. That's what you need to do, and they'll actually guide you through the process and let you know when one is appropriate and when another may become appropriate. So that being said, we're talking about the power of no today. I'm so excited. We have with us a life coach. He's also a consultant, and he's also a trainer. And I'd like to welcome Charles Block from the Pathfinder Group. Hi, Charles.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, it's an honor to be here.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here. I've known you for several years, and I always find you to be very inspiring, and I love the way you think about things. I've heard you talk many times before to large groups of audiences, and you're very insightful, and you always seem to put a different spin on a subject or a topic or the way people think, and you get people thinking about things in a different way, and I love that about you. So my first question I have,
Yes.
being a life coach, how is that different from being a therapist?
Being a life coach has very little to do with mental health. It has to do with achieving goals as a result of doing certain things that are either simple problem solving, sometimes it's attitude, just a variety of modalities we look at so as to support people in getting what they want, where they want to go. And therapy is, well, there's a great variety of therapies. Some are designed to support people who are experiencing grave emotional distress or inability to be in relationship or inability to manage their lives on a daily basis. Therapy is a first cousin of medicine. Coaching is a first cousin of sport. By that I mean we go for achievement rather than repair.
Oh, that's interesting. So with being a life coach versus being a therapist, it sounds like it depends which one you go to, depending upon the severity, or if it's more of a mental thing rather than a life choices. I hear life choices in there. Is that what you help people with, is life choices?
I do, and as do my colleagues. A person can actually utilize both therapy and coaching in the same time frame if they discover they're up against something or they want to transcend something. Both are capable of giving aid.
Okay. Well, I know personally of someone that you helped with their new business, and they were kind of stuck not knowing which way to go. I love the name of your company, Pathfinder Group, because obviously you helped her to get on the right path. And I think that's marvelous that you call it that, because that's what you do, is you're helping people get on the right path in many different ways, whether it's individuals or groups or companies. I guess you work with all
Yes.
kinds of entities on that. Okay, well, great. Well, thanks for explaining that, first of all. Also, you have been a caregiver yourself, right? Can you elaborate on that and tell me a little bit about your caregiving role? We're going to be talking about caregivers and to caregivers today, and I think it's important for them to know where you're coming from, not only as a life coach, but also from a caregiver role.
My caregiver role was painless, actually, and that's unique because my job was not the daily physical care of anyone. It's actually my mother over whom I took responsibility for her well-being and her situation in life. She was when she joined us in Florida, she was in her 90s, and our situation was such that she was in an assisted living facility, and of course I visited her daily, and we had chats and so forth. And then it got to the point where Alzheimer's really accelerated rapidly, and we moved to Arden Court, which was a godsend. And my caregiving was, as I say, was not hands-on as much as the others who cared for her. She was actually quite an easy person to work with. She was cooperative. Interestingly, about Alzheimer's, there's such a variety of personalities that they cannot really be compressed or homogenized into one. So I was lucky in that regard. In my case, or how I view it, was that it was an honor to be able to provide the care as I did, but it was so much simpler than most people have in their situation, and I genuinely commiserate with those who have a more challenging time, and I support those people in a variety of ways.
Right, because everyone's journey with Alzheimer's and being a caregiver is all different.
Yes.
And you don't know how that journey is going to end up and what you're going to find along the journey. And that's actually how I first met you, when your mom came to live at Arden Courts, and she was a very lovely lady, and thank you for those kind words. We were very grateful and honored to have her with us during the time that she was. So you understand where caregivers, have difficulties with figuring out what they need to do, and they're not just taking care of themselves and their own family, but now they may have a parent or a spouse or a grandparent to take care of. And it becomes so overwhelming, as you know, that you just don't know where you stop and they end, or where you begin and they end, because it kind of becomes convoluted sometimes, where caregivers don't take care of themselves because it's all about the person with the dementia. And it's very difficult sometimes for caregivers to figure things out, whether it's what path do I take, how do I take care of myself, how do I know what the right thing to do is, where do I go, am I doing the right thing? And we want to help caregivers, along this journey. And I heard you talk several months ago about the power of no, the N-O. I think about when they say the drugs, just say no, although drugs, some can be good, but just say no. And I thought it was very interesting. And a few weeks ago, we shared with the caregivers about brain boosters, about learn to say no, because it eliminates some things on your plate. But I want, from your perspective, from your expertise, to explain why caregivers need to say no, and when do they need to say no? So let us hear about that.
I'll do the best I can. When it comes to, first of all, the relationship between caregivers and the people to whom they care, most especially when it's a family unit, is, as far as I can tell, one of the most challenging relationships there are in nature. And this, although these relationships have existed for the millennia, since Alzheimer's and other diseases of its kind have become more prevalent as a result of people living longer, the challenge is even growing greater. Further, my guess is that there's not even close to being a full appreciation for those who are doing caregiving. There's not, and thus the caregiver is shortchanged on just acknowledgement itself. So there's a component there that also needs to be addressed. But those are major social shifts which are happening, but very, very slowly. Regarding no, even when I say the word, I know that some people are just caught up short, because saying no looks like, the first time we said no, many of us, when we were little children, we would stomp our feet and say no, we were punished. No was a word that ought not be used, especially with a parent. And yet no, and then as parents, we said to our children, no, and it usually brought up some stress and so forth. But no is no is generally declining a request. It is when someone is asking for something that we are now not willing to provide. Not saying no is more stressful than saying no. Here's why. If we don't say no, and we ought to be declining their request, we're creating a context wherein we're dancing around what ought to be done. No, initially, and by the way, no doesn't have to have, and usually ought not have, any emotion around it.
Really?
Yeah, when you think of no, it's no, or I'm so sorry, no, as different from no.
Okay, so there's different ways to even say no.
Many ways of saying no. And the most effective in circumstances where we're responsible for somebody else's well-being is without emotion.
That's when you're effective.
Most effective.
Okay.
The yelling, the whining, those other pseudo-emotional responses are all fake.
They're fake.
They're fake. They disguise our unwillingness to simply decline someone's request.
It's funny because I'm thinking, as you're saying that, an example where you might have two siblings,
Yes,
or three siblings, and there's always one that ends up being the primary caregiver for a parent, and that one primary caregiver is stressed out because they're not getting the support from their siblings because maybe they're local, and they want some extra help, whether it's financial help, emotional support, whatever it might be. And I've heard it over and over again where that primary caregiver, the sibling, is asking their other siblings for help.
yes.
And you hear no. I know because of this, or no because of that, or no, I can't do it, or, and it's very hard for that caregiver to hear that word no.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that they hear it in different ways than it's being said, and I'm sure that it's being said in different ways than they're hearing it also. So continue on, but I just had to interject that because it just brought to my mind a perfect example about how people respond to no and how people react to hearing it. So
Absolutely.
So you can talk about both sides of
Sure.
that fence. Okay.
The siblings who are unwilling to participate and who are also mean-spirited in a way, when the caregiver is saying, "Will you do X?" No, there's a lack of kindness underneath it. Number one. Number two, the extraordinary relationship between all these individuals and the person being cared for is something about which we don't even know. It doesn't necessarily change as a result of a parent becoming mentally incapacitated, as it were. It actually can devolve into even more anger and more hostility and more resentment from the past, creating so that the person asking, you need to help me, I'm here by myself, and so forth.
Right.
That the siblings, the opposite side, as it were, digs in. And now they have a chance to say no, and the asker is powerless. So setting that aside, because that's really not part of this conversation. I mean, if someone who's giving care has siblings who are unwilling to participate, that's a problem that has to be addressed in a different way, and which I'm not prepared to talk about at this time.
No. But
Right.
when you were talking about no and people
Right.
saying no, I know caregivers have heard no.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about when caregivers themselves should be saying no.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's a large audience of people to whom caregivers really most effectively could say no. It could be to their siblings, to their parents, to their partners, and all those who impede what they're doing when they're doing the best that they can. Declining, it seems to many caregivers, and it's only natural, that they're the prisoner of the job of giving care. And if they were to decline doing some of that, they would be bad people. Well, maybe they'd be good people. Maybe they'd be better people if they recognize that everyone involved with this person has certain responsibility. I'm talking about, again, classically, it's children. If they decline, if they stop, it's a huge challenge. But they say, if they were to simply say, I'm not going to do it, which is the same as no. I am not going to do it. This is my limit. The answer is no. And then follow through on that no. By that I mean they simply move from the space where they were. I don't know if I'm being clear about that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of some caregivers who can't say no because they end up being martyrs because they want to say no, but they really can't say no for whatever reason. And so now they've put themselves in a position where, hey, if I don't do it, who will? You know, it creates another whole dynamic, I think.
Well, that's a soliloquy people have. If I don't do it, who will? The answer could be, and it could be a very effective answer, it could be, I don't know who can do it, but I won't do it. Not I can't do it. I won't do it. Why will I not do it? Now I'm going to just take another view, another piece, which you mentioned in the past, and that's that the most important care that a caregiver can give is to themselves. It's the number one care from the number one care provider. Everyone's familiar with getting on an airplane, the flight attendant saying, put the mask on yourself before you put it on anybody else.
There's a
even an
reason for
infant.
that, right?
The reason being, if you don't do that, you are useless. You are doomed. Those people will die also. Right. So that's classic and that's misunderstood, but it's absolutely correct. Every time a caregiver gives care in lieu of caring for themselves, they damage themselves and ultimately the nature of the caregiving relationship. That's virtually always the way. Sacrificing one's life for the care of another is not what's called for, ever.
And we know it happens.
Oh, it happens all the time. People's attitude towards their parents or their loved ones is such that they take on the role of abandoning their own life for the sake of others.
They give up a job.
They give up everything.
They give up other family relationships.
That's
Maybe they
true.
give up a marriage because they have to take care of it and it affects their marriage.
Right. When it is known that this is what they want to do, if they want to do it, like it's not a burden that's been bestowed on them, but I want to care for my wife. She cared for me, and so forth and so on. Well, then there's not really much to say about that. That's a choice. But when one has to do it, then all kinds
Or
of...
feels that they have to do it.
Well, they say it, they feel it, and it's a decision that they've made, actually, that they have to do it as a burden, as an obligation. They create the relationship with the person for whom they're caring that now also doesn't work because there's resentment underneath it. So personal caregiver, here's what I recommend to a caregiver. Just the most basic of caring for oneself. And obviously this one's silly. I always say to a caregiver, when did you have a manicure last? Which seems absurd. I don't have time for a manicure. I don't have time to go to the bathroom.
Right.
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 But it's essential, and it looks like it's impossible, but it isn't. It isn't impossible. Well, it may be in certain circumstances. I mean, I don't know all circumstances. But if a caregiver recognizes that the primary care to be given is to themselves, that they will be effective as a result of caring for themselves, they'll have more of an opportunity to say no. And many times we say no and then give a reason. No, because I blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But that's not
Is that
essential.
a reason or is it an excuse?
It could be either one. The point is, it doesn't matter. One doesn't have to give a reason. Well, if someone were to say to me, not to, why? No, why no? Because I don't want to. So that's not even acceptable in certain arenas, in certain contexts with people.
That would be...
You don't want to? What kind of a person are you? I'm a person who takes care of himself.
So that's an acceptable answer just
It
because I
is.
don't want to.
I don't want to. The answer is no. I love my mother, and I'm not going to stay here tonight. So all those things, and what happens is that people who are very loving and kind people sacrifice themselves because they could never say, no, I'm not going to. If they get the ability to say, no, I'm not going to, or just no, without the I'm not going to, they energize themselves in ways that they couldn't otherwise. They resign from the Association of Martyrs. The Association of Martyrs is not a group to be in. It is the only, and by the way, I believe this is true. I believe that all martyrs are dead. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but martyrdom does not bestow any specialness,
Any trophy.
Any trophy.
Any trophy
Any
for
award,
being a martyr.
Right. Boy, was she a martyr. Better her than me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's true. And people need to be coached into no. People need to be, well, they don't need to be, but I advise it. My primary message today is, and I think it was yours as well, my primary message is take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself.
Well, when we come back from this next commercial break, we're going to talk more about how to take care of ourselves as a caregiver and more about the power of no. We'll be right back.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Make First Choice your first choice for home health care. First Choice is state certified for Medicare covered services such as medical treatment and rehabilitation. Qualified healthcare professionals come to your home and work closely with your doctor to build a care plan designed to get you back on your feet as soon as possible. Founded and operated by registered nurses, First Choice Home Health is dedicated to providing exceptional home health care. Their highly skilled medical professionals have the knowledge and ability to provide patients quality care. Call First Choice Home Health at 561-296-2770. That's 561-296-2770. And tell them you want them as your first choice. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're back, and I'd like to thank our national sponsor that makes this show possible. That is Arden Court's Memory Care Community. Arden Courts has many communities all across the United States. Arden Court's memory care communities are a leader in providing care for people with Alzheimer's and other related dementia. They also like to take care of the caregiver, meaning that they're there providing support groups, providing resource materials. And one of the things that Arden Courts would like to provide to you as a family caregiver is this book. It's called the 36-Hour Day Book, written by Dr. Peter Mace, and this is in the 5th edition already, which means it's been around. There's a lot involved in this book as far as taking care of someone with dementia, a lot of tips, a lot of do's, a lot of don'ts. I think it's invaluable for a caregiver, so that we want to have it in your library so that you can have this resource. All you have to do to get this free copy for yourself is to call the toll-free number, which is 888-478-2410. Again, that's 888-478-2410. Call them up, tell them that you heard about this offer on the Caregiver Solutions Info program, and they'll take your name and address and mail you your free copy. You'll be very glad that you have this. And if you're listening and know someone that would probably benefit from having this book, call for them and give it to them as a gift, and they'll be very glad that you did. I'd also like to thank our local sponsors. Please, invite them into your realm of professionals, of experts that would be preferred providers for you, whether it's for home health or an elder law attorney. These are providers in our local area that can be very beneficial to you as a family caregiver also. So that being said, I want to welcome back Charles Block. He is a life coach. We distinguished that he's not technically a therapist, but I tell you what, he sure does sound like one to me. And he is a trainer and a consultant and helps people get on the right path. He's also been a caregiver himself for his mother who had Alzheimer's, so he knows what he's talking about when he's talking about caregivers taking care of themselves and the power of no. So I want to get back to that, Charles. Caregivers that are asked, let's get an example. Mm-hmm. You're taking care of your spouse, mm-hmm. and he has dementia, and you have a lot of friends, and you've been on a lot of committees, and you do a lot of things, and you're a very busy person, but someone in your community, calls you up and said, oh, you were so good on the committee last year when we did that fundraiser. Mm-hmm. You were so good. We'd like to have you back again because mm-hmm. you know what? We couldn't do it without you. Mm-hmm. And now they're laying on all the reasons why mm-hmm. you need to do this. And the caregiver may want to do it, may want to help, but realizes sometimes yes, sometimes no, that they're running short on energy or time or whatever they're running short on mm-hmm. because caregiving takes it out of you. Mm-hmm. They're afraid to say no because what if that person doesn't like me? What if I ruin some relationships? What if they never ask me again to ever do anything? And so now they have an opportunity to take care of themselves by saying no, but sometimes they can't do it. Why would that be? And do you have any advice for somebody like that? Any insight? I don't know if it's because they feel guilty or they're afraid. Can you talk to that?
What came to mind is an audacious answer. Thank you for inviting me to head the committee. I'm unable to do that unless you provide a caregiver while I'm in the process of giving that speech.
I like that answer.
And it may or may not be effective. The point being that that is effectively taking care of yourself. That's that essence. I want to reemphasize the most important within the relationship of a caregiver and the person who's receiving care, the most important person is the caregiver. So that body, if we're disembodied from that body, if we're
Right.
separated from that, it's far easier to protect that person, as it were. When we're in the situation that this book has just blew my mind with the 36 hours.
Yeah, there's not
oh my
20
God, that's it.
no 24 hours for
24 hours.
caregivers, right?
That when we leverage the resources that we have, whether they be friends, colleagues, or simply our willingness to be powerful, as different from powerless, we make a huge difference. We actually make a difference in other people's lives. Caregivers can be not martyrs, but heroes. Heroes in that they do things that other people are unwilling to do or unable to do. More often unwilling to do. But exercising personal strength by resisting those things which damage the person, the caregiver, is absolutely essential. Nothing, and the conversation in the head of they won't like me, they won't ask me again, I liked doing it the last time, and so forth and so forth. All that conversation, when we pay attention to it, will make our lives shorter. When we
Meaning that
if we
it's
say,
causing us stress. Is that what you mean?
that's right. And by the way, even though it doesn't look like it, it's my assertion that all stress is self-induced.
Really?
Yeah.
I think caregivers would probably want to argue that with
They
you.
would want to hit me with a stick.
Yes.
But where does the stress come from? Does it really come from outside of us? It feels like it.
Right, because everything's getting piled on you, and you're a caregiver for your husband, and then you have to juggle the family, and then you have friends that want you to be obliged to them, and then you have the bills to pay, and you
Yes.
have everything falls on you.
Absolutely.
Doesn't that all create stress in a person? Because
does.
how could it not?
It does. It is, except that the stress itself is useless.
Well, yeah, stress is useless, but you still, I think caregivers still feel it.
Well, they can feel it and they can abandon it. And these are not primary subjects. I mean, this is not I need the tactic. It is a practiced way of being so that all the burdens which we're taking on or which appear to be given to us, when we deal with them in a way that doesn't produce stress inward, but puts energy outward. Now, it doesn't make it any easier, but it does make it easier mentally. We are now not the martyr that we're almost forced to be. We needn't be martyrs. We can give excellent care, and we can give too much care, and we can fail as a result.
Right.
So,
I like what you said, though. I would like to be on your committee if you provide a caregiver for my husband because I can't leave him to do it. I like that answer because I think it does two things. I think it's not really saying no in directly, which sometimes it's easier for someone to just say no, I can't or whatever. But it also lends light onto your situation
Yes.
for the other person to understand where you're at because they don't know what you're going through. They don't know how hard it is that you're taking care of your husband. They might even not even know you're taking care of him if you
That's
haven't
right.
shared that.
it's not, and by the way, you're not coming across as a victim. You're coming across as a powerful person. Look, be glad to do it. Take care of my husband,
Yeah.
which is different. Oh, I would love to speak at that, but I have to care for my husband, and I'm really unable. No,
So that makes the tone in your voice, the way you said it,
the attitude you take.
the attitude.
If you want something from me, here's what has to happen. Here's what has to happen because I say so. As different from, oh, you've asked me and I want to, but I can't, and here's why. And
and you're giving excuses.
and you're creating stress. I would let me say this. I would much rather create stress in other people than in myself.
So that's where the power comes in. When
It
we're talking
does.
about the power of no, it gives a caregiver power to say no in a kinder way, in a more direct way,
In a less emotional way.
in a less emotional way that doesn't cause stress or any kind of maybe even guilt on their part.
Well, that's it. So all these things come into play: guilt, stress, and so forth, and even the word saying no. Saying no is just a symbol. It is a symbol of being powerful.
But people are afraid
Yes.
if you said no to somebody,
Yes.
they're afraid of the consequences. If you say to no, then they don't know what you're going to come back at and say to them. And it's scary, I think, and sometimes.
No is an essential vocabulary word for people who want to live lives in a powerful way, even while doing the most challenging of jobs. It is, once again, and of course, it's all attitudinal. It is taking a look at ourselves and recognizing that we may be burdened excessively, but we don't have to be weak, that we don't have to be martyrs, that we don't have to be downtrodden. We don't even have to be resentful.
So it's almost the flip side, I hear. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but I know you will. But I know you well enough. The flip side is instead of saying no to something, it's the flip side to that would be asking for what you need.
Could be. I mean, that's something you could do. That's something that I would recommend everyone do, whether they say no or not. Just turning to somebody and say, will you help me with this? Are you able to teach me and whatever it is? Well, we know that when caregivers ask their siblings say no. Well, if they can hear it from their siblings, they can hear it from anyone. Would you loan me $40, please?
And I have a choice to say yes or no.
You do. If you say no, I'm not going to be offended. I'm not going to have to crawl back in a hole. It's just, you're not going to give me the $40.
But if I want to give you let's say I'd like to, but that's a good example, but maybe I don't want to.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to say, well, I'd like to give you $40, but I don't think I have it on me today.
Right.
I haven't gone to the bank. So now there's excuses that come with that. So what you're saying is forget the excuses. Just say, no, I won't loan you $40.
Well, of course, what I was doing was taking the role of the caregiver by asking for the $40.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same, but it is exactly the same thing. When we're proactive in our requests, just in our requests, and in our declining other people's requests, or even accepting other people's requests, we reduce our level of stress, we increase our level of power, not necessarily energy, because 36 hours a day is 36 hours a day. There's no getting around it.
Right.
And I acknowledge it is the most challenging relationship within humanity. There's nothing more challenging. Nothing.
Right. Because that person can't take care of themselves, and you're responsible for everything about that person.
Or I've taken on the responsibility as different from being responsible.
Yeah, this is good stuff, right?
Good.
I love this. We're going to talk a little bit more to Charles when we come back, so stick with us after this brief commercial break.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney, but perhaps find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments? The solution is the Elder Law Department. They bring elder law to you by meeting with you in the comfort of your own surroundings to discuss your personal situation and family needs. In practice since 1994, Heidi Friedman is a member of the Elder Law section of the Florida Bar. She and her team help families with issues that include incapacity and estate planning, asset preservation, veterans benefits, and other legal issues that seniors may face. Call the Elder Law Department at 954-383-1143. 954-383-1143. They bring elder law to you. Arden Courts is not just a place to live. It's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teele, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, and we're back with Caregiver Solutions Info Show. We have Charles Block, who is with the Pathfinder Group, and he is a coach, a life coach that helps people find their paths. And he's also a caregiver. He's walked in your shoes, so he is with us, and we're talking about the power of no. So, Charles, I have a question. Saying no in an unemotional way, as you've been teaching us, sometimes causes caregivers to feel guilty. Can you talk about guilt and what guilt is and how can caregivers eliminate guilt out of their lives?
Yes, I can. Guilt is genuinely an inauthentic feeling.
Inauthentic,
Yeah,
huh?
here's what guilt is, almost by definition. Guilt is feeling bad about something we've done.
Yes, I understand that.
And we also take on that we shouldn't have done that. We're feeling guilty about that.
Is this where the shoulda, coulda, wouldas come in?
Well, a few of them.
Okay.
So guilt is this feeling, and the feeling is bad. And what's interesting about guilt is that when we feel it long enough, then we get to do whatever it was we did to generate it again.
Okay,
All right.
well, how I lost you.
I know. So I'll go through it again. We do something that we think is bad. What would be something that would be bad?
Just maybe telling somebody no that they wanted you to do something and you just didn't want to, and
Right.
you think, well, maybe I should have, but I don't feel like doing it, so I feel
Very
guilty
good.
about
So
it.
we feel guilty about it.
Right.
Now we feel guilty about it as if it were a bank account. I feel guilty, I feel guilty, I feel guilty, I feel guilty, paid in full. And now I can say no again.
So does that mean they beat themselves up about it?
We feel bad. We pay the price of doing what we did so that we can redo what we did. Now, here's the solution.
So in other words, it's not going to change anything because the next time you're going to still feel
Feel
guilty.
guilty, exactly. You've noticed in your own life, I've noticed in my life that when I felt guilty, I've done it again. So we're doubling down, but we're paying the price of the act we took, which we wanted to take.
Yes, because if we said yes and we really meant no, then we'd be mad at ourselves.
We'd be mad at them. We would, but we'd also be resentful.
Yes.
Which is even a bigger price than guilt.
So it's better to be guilty than resentful?
Well, even then, given that we're paying this price, this emotional, oh, I'm a bad person and so forth for whatever period of time, and then we do it again, that should be a good clue. Now, here's what we can do with some training. We can say no and choose to now not feel bad about that.
Again, you're saying it's a choice.
It's a choice, and sometimes we need some guidance in it.
And practice.
Practice for sure, and also to remember that guilt is feeling bad about something we intend to do again. And if we intend to do it again, how come we intend to do it again? Is that because we're bad people or because we know that that's the right path?
I don't know. What's the right answer?
Well, let's say it's because, we're certainly not because we're bad people.
But we think we are.
We think we are. By the way, whatever we think we are, for the most part, ain't so.
I thought, where was that that saying that says you are what you think?
I don't know. I don't use it.
Okay. I've heard that.
How about you are what you do?
You are what you do?
Right.
Okay.
But But even that, I don't want to go into philosophy in one sentence.
No, we don't have time for that
Okay.
today.
So
Another time.
what I'm suggesting is that if one is feeling guilt, one might want to take a look at it in the sense that, oh my God, that's what I do whenever I do something I want to do, but think that nobody wants me to do it. I feel bad. I feel guilty. I feel that I'm to blame for. Well, the fact of the matter is I am to blame for. I am responsible. And I can do these behaviors and simply feel okay that I'm doing I don't have to pay any more guilt.
So that's when you're saying the power of no should
You got
not elicit guilt.
Well, I don't say it should not. But if it does, recognize it as feeling bad with the rest of the universe or with the rest of the people in your universe, because they will want you to feel bad, and you'll want to feel bad so as to conform with certain mores. And see, once you get to the point of, I'm going to say no, and so what?
There you go. Just leave it be.
Right. One generates power out of abandoning guilt. It can be done. And starting with the smallest matters is good. When one feels even a pinch of guilt, take a look at it. If it's something you really want to give up, give it up. If it's something that you continually do, the feeling guilt part is simply paying the price for doing what it is you want to do.
And if you really want to do it, then that would be your right answer.
It would.
Wow. So in a few minutes that we have left
Yes.
today, I know that, people are listening or watching. They're getting just a taste of the way that you can help people. And it's wonderful. So if someone wanted to contact you, of course, we're here in South Florida, but how could they do that and tell them a little bit about how that works?
Well,
Because we have about 3 minutes left.
okay. One can contact me via my phone, number one, area 954-600-6280. My email address is cbloch, CBLOCH, @bellsouth.net. That's the way to find me. Make a phone call. You'll see what happens. It will be fun to talk to you. I invite you to do it. My fees are never paid by anybody other than the person that hires me.
Okay.
And there are no co-pays. There are complete pays. Also,
Okay, that's good to know.
occasionally some companies do hire me, and then, of course, that's part of
It's
the package.
different, but an
It's different.
individual can call you and say, I'd like to talk to you. And
Yes.
they don't have to be in person, or can they do it over the telephone?
They can do it over the telephone, but my preference is eyeball to eyeball. I
Okay.
like to crawl
Just
up
like
into
we
their
are
lap.
now, eyeball to
Right,
eyeball.
exactly.
So
But it's
thank
not
you
necessary.
again for
My
coming.
pleasure.
I hope that you all enjoyed today. I certainly did. It was good stuff. Stay tuned to next week. We'll have another great show for you. And in the meantime, don't forget, give someone a hug because they need it and so do you. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teele. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program